recording, so that's going. So first thing on the agenda, integration with Moodle. Right, so here we are on my Moodle module, and there are two ways to add Panopto videos via Moodle. The first and most straightforward one is adding a link to a Panopto video. So if I add an activity or resource, I get a pop-up that appears, which if you see, you'll see Panopto video right there in the center. So if I press that one, that will launch. And all I need to input is a name for the video. So I'll go Panopto lecture. I'll allocate a study time to that. So how long students it will take students to work through that material. So this is going to be 45 minutes. I'll put that in there. And finally, select content. Press the button and you have a Panopto window that appears. So you have three options. If you see at the top that we're already on within a folder associated with the course we're on. So that's very important. When you create your videos, they're automatically shared with lecturers and students on the module and no one else, which is quite important. I can change that to other folders if I like. I can change it to my personal My folder, which is restricted to me, but really what we want to keep it within that folder for recording for a Moodle module. I can choose an existing recording that I've recorded on this module within this folder. So if I went to my another folder, you'd see that would switch to my existing videos. But we'll keep it within this folder. I can upload a video that I've recorded on my phone or via another medium. We'd recommend actually that if you're using an iPad to record, that you record it directly to the iPad using the iOS software rather than the Panopto app. There's a 10-minute restriction for Panopto on iOS, so just use the app that's associated with your iPad or iPhone, and then you can upload it here. But most of the time, what you'll be doing is actually recording a video. So we go to record here, and it asks you for a name for the video. So we'll go test recording just to get started. And if you haven't got Panopto installed on your machine, this is the point that it'll ask you to install it. To save a bit of time, what's always a good idea is to go to Apps Anywhere before you start recording and install it from there, so you get the normal version of Panopto. Just speeds up the process very slightly, but you can install it from here as well. So I'm going to press record, and what that will do is it will launch the Panopto player, or the recorder, should I say. So I'll just wait for that to happen. He says, there we go. Right, so it's appeared in my other window, so I'll drag that up in just a second. So here's the main interface for... My computer has been very slow this morning, so apologies for that. Right, so we'll put that to the top of the page. So hopefully you can see my recording window. There we go. Yeah, I can see that in the little preview. So, right. So there are a few options within the window. We're on the create recording to start with. And I'll just highlight the settings you'll need to start recording a video. Most of the time, what you'll want is under video, you'd want your webcam. So that is normally defaulted to be on, but because we're in WebEx and my webcam is being used, I can't select that at this point. But it would normally have your webcam in there. So if you press that, you'll get a little preview of yourself up in the top left-hand corner. Audio is selected by default. In fact, if you select none, it won't let you record. So you can't record without recording sound at the same time. So it's kind of a safeguard, so you don't get all the way through your video and realise you've not recorded your own voice. This is a telltale sign of your voice as well. You'll see that the level goes up as I speak louder, so you want to adjust it. I would recommend that you do a quick 30 seconds to a minute recording to start with, just to get your levels right. I've recorded a lot of videos recently, and one or two of them I've noticed that I've set it too low. It's better to set it too high than too low. If you're hitting the red a lot, that means you'll get a bit of distortion. But if you have it up quite high, people can always turn it down, but you can't ramp up the volume any more than it's recorded at very easily. So have a quick have a quick test recording before you get going is always a good piece of practice, especially if you're doing a long lecture. Okay, I set mine to high in terms of quality because the lighting in my office isn't great, and what regularly happens is it looks quite grainy, so I set it a little bit higher just to try and improve that slightly. I can highlight. Oh yeah, go for it, Tom.
Just for you today, because this is something I've experienced when demoing Panopto. If you leave that as high, because you're screen sharing and all that, it will. That's what's causing your computer to be super slow. So it's not normally Panopto is not normally this slow, but where you're screen sharing and doing WebEx and this, it does get a little bit intensive.
Great stuff. Okay, I'll drop that down to standard. Thanks for that, Tom. That's really useful. Okay, so back to standard then. What is very common is that you'd have something else alongside your lecture. So what you'll end up with is picture-in-picture of yourself in the bottom, depending on what Panopto view you're using. Where if it's embedded within a web page, you'll appear down here in the bottom right. If it's the expanded view, you'll often appear here on the left with your other screen as the main area. So I've ticked my second screen. So I've got a laptop and I've got a bigger screen above it. So if I enable screen capture preview, you'll see what I'm seeing, and you have this. I really wish I knew the term for this, but when the recording goes down within itself. But this is just showing what's on my main screen. So if I was to start recording with my webcam turned on, I'd be up here, and then my main screen would be recorded. You can have another screen as well, and people and students can toggle between your screens if you want. You can also change the layout after the fact, but you need to have recorded it in the first place. But most commonly, you'll have your main screen or second screen with the slides on it and your face alongside it. So make sure those are selected. A little handy tip for you: if you're using a laptop and a screen, I've been doing a few recordings like this at the moment. I would advise that you present or read from this preview here. What I've done recently when I've recorded videos is I've got my main screen going and I can read my slides, but then when you look at the recording, I'm constantly like this, and you're kind of looking, effectively up the nose, which is not great. So if you move that preview down onto your laptop screen, it's quite a nice way to present from. You're looking directly into the camera, and it feels more like a conversation. It feels just a little bit more personal. So just a little bit of a handy hint there. Someone in the previous session asked about what this join session means, and we read up on it. And basically what it means is if you've got multiple, these are your own sessions, so you can record from different devices at the same time. So I could be using my phone almost as a visualizer, kind of capturing some detail maybe of a process, while also recording from my laptop. So these are sessions that you are running. They're not team teach situations. They're your sessions that you want to join together. But it's a really handy tip if you want. So everyone's got a visualizer effectively. If you want to do something with detail, you can do that at the same time. So you press join session. You log in via your mobile phone, and from here, and then you choose the sessions to join them together, and then you get an extra input that's available up here. So just a handy tip if you're working in the sciences, or you want to, or mathematics, or something along those lines. If you want to draw something on a piece of paper and you want to broadcast that, get yourself a little tripod stand, and then you use your phone as a visualizer. Just a handy way of using it. There's also PowerPoint. If you've got PowerPoint running in the background, you can just select PowerPoint rather than having to have that displayed on one of your screens. I prefer to have the screen because, as we can see here, if I use other applications, I can draw those in as I need them. So this is your live stage, the screen, and you can draw whatever you want into that space. Okay, once we're happy with those settings, I don't normally mess about with the resolutions or anything. They're set at quite a good rate anyway. I'll just hit record to get going. I normally leave it. You'll see it connecting. And what I'll do is I'll normally leave it for 2 or 3 seconds. So wait until it starts. Leave it 2 or 3 seconds before I start speaking. Just giving it some trim space when you start, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And then you're broadcasting. You can pause at any point if you want. what I found is that if I start badly, then I'll hit stop and I'll delete the recording and I'll start again. But what you find is you get into a bit of a habit with that, and you keep wanting the perfect start. What I found is quite useful is if you make a bit of a mistake, just keep going. You can very easily cut those out later on, but if you've got a good flow going and you've been going for a while, just keep going. You can edit it later. Don't stop and start. It gets quite frustrating. So you can use your pause if you want to go and get a cup of tea or do something else. And then once you finish recording, obviously you press the stop button. If you press done, it will be recorded. It will be transmitted to the cloud, and the processing will begin on it. I'm just going to delete it at this point because we don't actually need this recording. It's just for illustration purposes for the controls. So I'll delete that one. I'm mindful that I forgot to tell you one thing. I forgot to tell you to put a name for the recording in there. So this is the box that you name the recording. You can change it later. I'll show you how to do that. But it's quite useful to add a name in so you can identify it later. And it's also what the students will see as the title for the video. So that's where you put that in before you start recording. Okay, that's the recording interface. That's the thing you'll use most often, I suppose, next to the editing screen. Has anyone got any questions about that they want to jump in with? Anything more clarifying? No? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Okay.
I know Thomas is suggesting that you're going to carry this, talk about this in more detail later, but at this point,
yep.
If you're recording a short lecture with PowerPoint slides,
yes,
I understand the settings, except I don't understand the screens. So if I need to have my PowerPoint on the same computer that I have my Panopto on.
Yes.
Yes. And I load up the PowerPoint.
Yep.
And then I hit record. Yes?
Yes. If you're using PowerPoint, make sure this box here is checked. So you're
I don't see it. Sorry.
In the bottom left-hand corner,
yeah,
you'll see secondary sources, and then you've got starting PowerPoint, or it will say PowerPoint, capture main screen. What does yours say in the secondary sources at the moment?
There's something that's blanked out. I can't see. Then there's a potential to capture main screen, and there's a tick on the capture second screen.
Okay. So if you'd launch PowerPoint, if PowerPoint was running in the background, let me just do that now. See if it adjusts. Go for it, Tom.
Sorry, just while Mike's loading up the PowerPoint, was working with an academic who had like a GIF inside of his PowerPoint, and it was like mechanics of the human body. He'd pressed the capture PowerPoint button, and that was it. And the PowerPoint went through fine, but the video kind of didn't. And the way we had to fix it was you have to select the PowerPoint capture and then also the main screen capture, and then the PowerPoint slides kind of sync to that, and you also get the movement and other bits that may be embedded inside of the PowerPoint that aren't directly PowerPoint, because it's being very, very literal in that where you tick record with PowerPoint, what it's doing is recording only things that are technically PowerPoint. So the videos that are kind of embedded in there are not technically PowerPoint, although you're seeing it through PowerPoint. You just need to basically tick both the boxes. So I'll let Mike sort of demonstrate that now as he's got a PowerPoint open.
Yeah, if it was my preference, I would go for screen rather than PowerPoint. There's less things to go wrong effectively. It will work as you see now, but it's a bit more finicky. I've had to close down that window, both the Panopto window and the Moodle window, once I've launched my PowerPoint. So you can't do it retroactively. Once you've launched that screen, that will be hidden. So you have to down.
Sorry, I'm just lost. If I can't get through this point, I don't know how to get on further.
I'll make it simpler for you then. Don't use the PowerPoint option. Use your screen option. Okay, so you've got a main screen, which is presumably your laptop or computer.
Yes.
You have a main screen. So main screen is your computer. Second screen is your additional one. Just use second screen. It defaults to that anyway. And if you press the preview, in your preview, you can see exactly what you're doing. So it works quite nicely in that your laptop is your staging area, and then your extra screen is your presenting area. So anything you drag into that space. So if you want to go, if you're presenting from PowerPoint and then you want to show a YouTube video, it gets a bit finicky. So just use your screen as your presenting space, and you can't really go wrong. Whatever you put in that space will be recorded. Does that work?
I'll give it a go and hope for the best.
No
Thanks.
problem at all. Give it a try, and if you have any problems, please do get in contact. We can work with you individually to work through it. That's absolutely fine. Okay. So any more questions about that? Just do people understand the general approach to recording? Okay. And so I'm assuming that's a yes. As I say, please give it a go, and if you have any problems, please do get in touch, and we can work through you on those. So we'll assume now that we've recorded a video, so I'll record one for just a couple of seconds, just so I've got something to use. To 10. Okay, so recorded for an hour. I press stop, and now I'm going to accept that video. So I press done. That gets whizzed off to the cloud to be processed, as you can see here. So here's the upload process. And then you can see all my previous recordings here as well. Once that's been processed, you'll get a few links which lets you share or edit directly from, or get to the editing screen from here. So while that's processing, I'm going to close down my Panopto window because we've used that to record, and that's fine. And now my recording is processing. I can now select my video to be inserted within Moodle. Okay, so we've worked with that. Normally, you would check it first, though. You'd press that edit button that we saw on the Panopto screen and edit it. But I will show you that as a separate process, just so you can see that in its entirety. So I'll choose that recording and insert it. The majority of times, you're not going to get it right first time. There are going to be little bits that you want to tweak, and we will get to that in just a second. Just to show you the whole process of creating, recording, and saving to Moodle. Do that now. Okay, screen like this. I've got a slightly different setup. So once you've gone through that process, you'll end up with a link to your recording on Moodle. Okay, so that's probably the most common way that people insert Panopto videos into Moodle. But there is a secondary way, which is these embedded videos. And these are really useful because they give more emphasis to your videos. You can have them, if I had the module template here, I could embed those within labels and say, please view this is your lecture. They just give more emphasis. The interface is very slightly different. You've got your table of contents at the bottom, and you can get to the full Panopto view if I press this arrow. But in order to embed those, what you need is either a label, which you can put on the page, add an activity, and then label, or you can edit the top topic space within your week or topic, so that the summary for that topic. So if I press edit and then edit topic, most of yours will say edit week because that's the best way to teach online effectively. So your modules in weeks. Handily will keep one that's already here. So I'm going to delete that one and start again. So imagine a blank space, and here you see the Panopto icon. So this will let you embed videos directly into any text box, really, any text box you find in Moodle. So this could be a forum post, could be within the brief for an assignment. It could be in a label, as we've said, or within a web page or a book. That whenever you see text box, you can insert a Panopto video to give clarity. So I press the Panopto button, and I get the window that I saw before. So I can choose upload or record. but we've already recorded something, so we'll choose the one we've already got. If I press insert, it's embedded within that window. Okay, I'll press save changes, and then you'll see it embedded in the page. So all students really need to do is press the play button when they get to the video they want to watch. Okay, everyone happy with that process? Okay, so right, okay, so that covers the integration with Moodle. There are a number of ways to get to the cloud version of Panopto. This is where you will do your editing. So we're going on to editing next. I'm going to relaunch Panopto. So all I'm doing is going to my start bar in Windows and typing Panopto, and I'll get the Panopto desktop app. So that's what was launched when we pressed that record button within Moodle. So you can launch it immediately and do that as you need. But as I say, we'd recommend you go in via Moodle just so you get your the access rights correct. I can change my folder, so if I go to folder, it will list the different modules that I have, and I can select the right one. But going via Moodle will do it automatically for you. If I manage my recordings now, so I've got my recordings there. You can see the one we recorded to start with. As I say, very commonly, what you'll have done is you've made a few mistakes or rough edges that you just want to tweak out. You want to trim off that first bit, for instance. So I'll just press the edit button next door to that recording, and another window that launches, and this is the web version, the cloud version of Panopto. I've already logged in, so it takes me straight to that video. We'll look at the interface as a whole a little bit later, but you can now see that video I recorded earlier. And we left a good few seconds before we started talking. So what I probably want to do is just trim that first bit of the video. Trimming is the main thing you'll do with editing. So if I hover at the very start of my video, you'll see that the line thickens slightly. So I get a thick grey line at the start, and that just indicates that I can press and hold and then drag that out. So you see that area becomes greyed. Okay, so that grey area is an area that won't be seen by students. So that's us editing that section out. So it's non-destructive editing. So if you want to put this section back in again, you can quite easily drag it back out again. Okay, so these sections that you take out remain in the video, but anyone viewing it will not see them. So at any point you can put those back in, as I say. So you can do that trimming at the start and also at the end of the video. I'm just going to expand that view slightly. So press that button, because it means you can just tailor the view a bit easier. If I was to scroll along, it's actually this video isn't very long, so if it was longer, I'd have plus and minus buttons so I can zoom in a bit further as well. These peaks correspond to sound, normally what you've said. So I found when I've been recording Panopto videos, I say more than any word that I say. Honestly, I must say about 20 times a video. So we get a little bit addicted to going in and removing the word from my videos. But very quickly that it's very easy to spot when I press play. So I'll select the timeline, press play, and you'll very easily see the peaks that correspond with the peaks that correspond with words. So if you want to take out a sentence that you've said incorrectly, you'll see how they match up. So to remove those, I put my cursor at the start so I can see where it starts. I press and hold and I drag across that space, and that will remove that from the video. It's there if I want to put it back in again, but it won't be displayed in the video. As simple as that. On the far right hand side of the video, again, I get the trim for the tail ends. Often you'll leave 10 seconds or so of trailing space, so you can take those out as well. Is everyone happy with how that works in terms of trimming and editing? Okay. No shout, so seems okay. So trim at the start, trim at the end if you need to, and then you can select across sections to remove those as well. Okay, that's basic editing. I can rename the video if I want to call it something else by pressing this cog icon up in the top right hand corner. Press the cog icon and you'll get some just general information about the video you're recording. I can change the folder if I want to by pressing this one. I can give it a new name, which is quite common. So I'll press the edit button and I'll call it something else. So Introduction to Panopto. There we go. Press save, and that will be updated once we do the final save on the video. Panopto selects an image from your video just to tell you what it means, but you can add another preview image if you want. I normally take a screenshot of the first slide of my presentation with that nice University of Portsmouth front screen. It's got the title for the video in there as well, so if students are scrolling through a number of videos, they can see quite clearly what that video is about. You can leave the preview image if you want, but it's quite a nice touch to add a tailored one. You don't have to though, it's just an option. I can also, from this page, I can adjust the share settings. So by default, it will be to specific people. So you'll see down here that people on my course or my module are viewers. So anyone associated with that course will be able to view that video, and that's where you want to be. You can change it though if you'd like to share it by link. So if I want to share, if I recorded on, and Tom, correct me if you don't agree with this, but if you're delivering the same lecture on a number of modules, record it on one module and then share it to change it to anyone at your organisation with the link. And that means anyone that's got the link can view it somewhere else. Go for it, Tom.
You can do it that way. However, from what Sean's told me, it's more clever than that. So where you set to add that video into another module, you know, in the bit where you sort of choose to add the Panopto and it defaults to the folder for that unit. You know where you demoed that you have your My folder? If you do it to the other unit, what it will do is it'll then inherit for that unit as well. So it'll just add the specific things on. So you don't have to even there change across institution. I'll test that now and come back to you in a second.
Great stuff. So Tom's going to go away and test that. So what will happen is when we add it to a second module, so you go to your second module, you press the Panopto button and you select an existing video, and then within the share settings, it will just list that course or module in this list as well. So you can have it in two different places. If you wanted to share it with a colleague though, or you wanted to kind of share it via email, for instance, change it to anyone at your organisation with the link. And that means students and staff at UOP, if they have the link, you send the link to them, they can view your video. There is another option which a lot of people seem to be using, which I would not recommend, and that's anyone with the link. So people are getting confused about this and thinking it's similar to Google Docs in that you link restrict it, share that link around, and only those people that have the link can see it. Actually, what it does is it displays that video in the everything folder. So it's like a communal folder for shared videos. And most of the time, you don't want to do that. People that have done this so far have done it accidentally and don't realise they're sharing it quite widely. So really keep it to the default settings for your module, which you'll do automatically if you go via Moodle, or share it via the link using this top option. Anyone at your organisation with the link. Those are the two options you need really. You can use this link to share it or to link in other places, or you can use the embed code. So this is automatically generated for you, and the defaults there are actually quite okay. You can tailor the start point though if you'd like to. If you want it to start from a certain point, you can do that. That's quite useful. You may want to in the future embed a video on the university website, for instance, and that would let you do that. You won't normally need to use these though if you're recording for Moodle, because you can just use the icons within Moodle to do that for you. So that tiny icon in the editor will embed, and the add an activity or resource Panopto icon will add a link for you. So you don't normally need to mess about those, but just to let you know that they are there. Outputs, as we talked about earlier, it changes the default position of videos. So embedded videos, as you see, will be picture in picture, and the Panopto viewer, this more full interface that we're looking at now, is controlled there. So you can change just to the secondary video's primary. You probably won't do this. In most instances, you'll record, you'll select your main or second screen, you'll record, and then your face at the top of the video will be enough for most situations. It's just to tell you those are there if you need those. Okay, so once I'm happy with all of that, I will press the apply button. The video will process for an amount of time based on the length of your video. They're normally quite quick, but if you're recording long videos, it may take a good few minutes to process. I'm not going to do that though, because I want to show you a few more features. So I'll pop back to my main screen. So we've done recording, we've done some editing, and I just want to show you some handy features of Panopto. So over the summer, we launched the UOP module template, which will help you deliver in a flipped blended learning style for teaching online. Flipped delivery is probably the most common way to deliver online. And as part of that guidance, we said, record your lectures as chapters effectively. So they're easy for students to work through. Take each of those chapters and put those within a book chapter within Moodle, and label those up with the times associated with each of the length of those videos. That is best practice, and that does help students, but it is also time consuming for yourselves as academics recording videos. We didn't have Panopto at the time, we do now, and there's a much better way of doing that within the Panopto interface, and I'll show you how to do that. So that will be creating a table of contents. There's a secondary part of that. We also recommend, and still very much recommend, that you create knowledge checks for students. So you're checking whether students have understood what you've delivered. It's increasingly more important now when you don't get as many visual cues from students. You can't see them struggling in the lecture theatre, or because they're studying at their own pace, they won't necessarily get a chance there and then to stick their hand up and say, I don't understand that. So knowledge checks are very important. Again, we've highlighted a number of ways you can do that within Moodle, using a Google form or a Moodle quiz or other activities to do it. But you can now do that within Panopto as well, and I'll show you how to do that. But let's first look at the table of contents. So a table of contents will let you jump to specific sections of your video, put a link to that section, give it a title, and then say how long that section is. So it enables you to break up. If you're doing a 1 hour lecture, enables you to break it up into those chapters. So it's easy for students to work through, easy for them to get back to sections if they want to recap it themselves. It's really good practice. So on my timeline at the bottom, I'm going to say that topic 1 of my presentation starts at 4 seconds. So I'm going to select that there, and you'll see the red line appears. And then I'm going to go to contents up here in the top left, and I'm going to give it a title. So I'm going to say this is where we start talking about thermodynamics. In brackets, I'm going to talk about this for about 8 minutes, because somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes is an ideal length for your sections. And then when I press enter on my keyboard, I get that section pop up. Okay, so when this video is rendered, on the left hand side, students will be able to click to those sections and they'll know how long those are. So it will keep students motivated, because they know they can do a section and come back to it. They don't have to view the entire thing in one go. and also it will help them get back to sections if they want to as well. Handily, very handily, Panopto produces captions as it goes. They're not 100% accurate, but they are quite accurate. So as you speak, it's recording and it transcribes that and produces captions. So it makes your video searchable. So students can search for key terms that you've said but never written down, and they'll find those landmarks within the videos. It will also search content titles though. So if your title doesn't exactly match up with what you're presenting, students can find those key points very easily by searching. So a table of contents is key for a number of reasons. Please, I would really encourage you to get to the habit of doing that. But you can now record an entire lecture as you normally would, and then put those content markers in afterwards. Create that table of contents. Okay, everyone okay with how that works? Okay, great stuff. So we said we would cover a table of contents, which we have, and I'll now show you how to create knowledge checks within Panopto. So again, as I say, this is really key for teaching online. You need to check whether students have understood what you've taught, because they will be learning at their own pace in terms of online. They'll be doing this in their own time. They're working through it as they go. So to check that, you should create questions for them to answer. You can group all these questions together. So you have like an end of lecture quiz or knowledge check at the very end. So have you understood this week's lecture? Let's check. Or you can intersperse those after the sections. So you deliver a section on thermodynamics. Let's have a couple of questions so you can check as a student whether you've understood it, and I can check to make sure the group as a whole has understood it. I would recommend, if you're going to do one or other of those ways forward, I would say put them after each section, because as students work through it at their own pace, they can check their own knowledge, and if they haven't done very well on those questions, they can go back and recap it themselves and work out where they've gone wrong. You can provide feedback within that as well. So put some questions in after each section, so you can check students' knowledge. Very straightforward to do that. You just select a point on your timeline where you want to insert that question, and then press this plus button to add content. So I'm going to add a quiz at this point, and I'll get an interface which helps me design those questions. It's very, very straightforward. You have a number of options, so multiple choice questions, multiple select, true or false, and fill the blank. So multiple choice, we're probably quite au fait with how those generally work. So I'll give it a title. What color is orange? And then here are my answer options. So I can go blue, purple. I'll add another answer option in, and it's orange. And then I just need to identify which one is correct. So obviously I'll go orange for that one. I can add some correct answer explanation here if I want. So yes, you got the correct answer, and it's because of X, Y, Z. So you can expand on why something is correct, especially if you put quite well-structured distractors in there, which are quite similar to the correct answer. You're actually providing formative feedback, which they're learning via answering the question. So very, very straightforward. I can add another question with this button down here in the right, and then I'll just get a new interface to create a new question. So you can create a number of questions or just one or two, and then when you're happy with that, press done. You get a few extra options there. I would normally stick to the defaults unless you want to do something more fancy. So allow the students to retake the quiz. That's always a good idea, especially if they're recapping. So they've not done very well at the question. They've gone back and reviewed that section, and they've had another go. So they get a chance to redo it. That's what you want them to do, really. Show them the grade afterwards, yes. Allow review of the correct answers and explanations, yes. and block advancing the video until they answer the question. Yeah, you don't want these questions to be elective, optional. You want to know how your students as a whole have got on with answering the questions, how well they've understood your lecture, because if a number of students have got the same thing wrong repeatedly, you probably want to recap that in a seminar or a later date. So it's compulsory to answer those questions in most cases, I would say. Okay, I'll finish that. Oh, my video is processed. Recorded for an hour. Okay, so we've added our quiz in, and you'll see that it appears within our table of contents up here as well. So we can go back and change that one if we need to as well. If I double click that, I get back to the. Okay, so recorded for an hour. Pause. Right. Okay. So if I need to re-edit it, just double click that quiz icon to get back to that editing screen. Okay. So editing questions. You at some point you're going to want to check the answers for this quiz. So if you go to quizzes here, this is okay. Sorry, it's not that will list the quizzes. But if you go to the cog icon, or when you're just viewing the quiz, when you go to quizzes, it will give you the results for the quiz. That's what I'm searching for. Press the cog icon from here, and then go to quiz results, and then you will see you'll see it split by question and by student. You can pop open the students and see which ones they've got right, which ones they've got wrong. You'll see the percentages attached to those. I will, once we finish this, I'll show you that in practice. So there we go. Quite straightforward to add questions in, or quizzes. Select the point in time you want to add it. Press the plus icon and add a quiz. Really quite straightforward. Are we happy with how that works? Okay, great stuff. You may have noticed there that there is. Oh yeah, Tom, go for it.
Sorry, just to jump in on me spreading vicious lies from what you'd said earlier. You can't do what I thought you could do. So that's me just being wrong. The way you would do it is, as Mike described, if you have a video you've recorded in one module and then you want to use it in another module, there's kind of two ways to handle it. One is, as Mike is I think just pulling up now, where you would change the who has access to anyone in there with the link, and it will then do it, and that won't be a problem. Jo in our team said that the way she likes to do it, to keep it kind of tidier and separate, is if you go back to your kind of video selections, Mike, so basically the back end of Panopto, sorry.
Within Panopto itself.
Yeah,
okay.
It's slightly more complicated. You don't know. Again, it's purely up to you. So if you apply your changes, because obviously that's the next thing you'll need to do.
Yeah.
But if you go to your demo course. So
Moodle itself.
No, sorry. Where in the folder structure, the.
Okay, so up here, so my folder associated course. Yep.
What she suggested is if you select that, say the test one or the introduction to Panopto that you've just been working on.
Yep.
And tick it. You then have the copy option.
Okay.
And so she would then copy it to the folder.
Associated with
that's associated with it. So you essentially have two versions of the same video, but then when you add it to Moodle, it will then do the inherited bits because it's in the folder for that Moodle site. But it does rely on you finding it in a bit of an untidy structure. So the Mike's way is definitely the simplest, where you just change the permissions. However, you can have two copies of the same video and have them moved to separate places so that they are then just inheriting the permissions without having to worry about setting anything else, and it's a bit more locked down. But obviously I fully understand that there's a range of skill levels, and Mike's way is definitely the simplest, but it's just to kind of highlight you can do that. What you can't do is what I suggested.
But that's useful though. If you're delivering at different levels and you want to add something to the second module, so you you deliver your content, you copy that video to another module, and then you can expand on that as well. Oh, that's a good lead into the bit I didn't cover. So yeah, copying is quite useful. You can create 2 versions and then expand on the second one, for instance. While we were looking at those videos, what I didn't cover was how you stitch videos together. So if I go back to my edit button associated with my video, so it takes us back to the editing screen. So if you've recorded a number, I recorded a top 10 ways TEL can support teaching the other day. So it's a series of smaller videos all stitched together. So instead of recording them all in one go, I recorded them individually and then I inserted them into a master video. So all I did was I had my first video, which had my introduction in it. I got to the end of the video and then I highlighted where I wanted to insert it. And then I pressed the plus button to add a clip. So a clip is another recording, another Panopto video that you'd like to insert. So I went to add a clip. It gives me a list of all my recordings and I can select different folders if I want to. I'm going to go to my folder and here, and then I just selected my video. So the second section that I wanted inserted, I pressed insert, and then after a few seconds, my second clip is inserted. So you can do it that way. You can combine different videos you've already recorded into one big video by pressing the plus button after selecting the timestamp and adding a clip. Okay, you can also link to external websites, which is quite handy. There's 2 ways of doing this. So as I was recording the other day, I was talking about other websites. I talked about Padlet for a little bit of time, and I wanted people to be able to get to the Padlet website. So there's 2 ways of doing that. You can select the time point that you want them to do that, and you can press add and then add a web page. And then you can give it a title for that. So this is just a link to a web page. So if I went for UOP Padlet site, and that is uop.padlet.com.org. So I'll insert that there. But what that does is when they get to that point in the video, the Padlet website is thrown up on the page. So they're watching a video, they get to that point that you have put that marker in, and then Padlet pops up so they can go and explore, which is handy. But it doesn't work for all websites. You can't do that for some Google sites. You need to check whether it will work as you intended it to. What I tend to do actually is instead of inserting the website as it is there, I'm going to close that one. I select the point that I want them to insert that link, and then in my video I say we're going to talk about padlet.org. Please have a look in the content section for that link. And then within my table of contents, I press the link icon, and instead of giving the web page a name, I just put in the web address there. So that is uop.padlet.org. And what happens is at that timestamp, so I can adjust that. So if I want actually that to appear at 28 seconds, I'll press save. And then that web address, I can't do it there. That's handy. Let's do it there instead. Okay, I'm gonna move that. You get this sometimes. It asks you to put it. You can't put it within clips that you've inserted. You can put it before and after them. You can't put it at exactly.
It's yours. Your hours is singular. It needs to be 00 at the front.
Okay, I'm 3. I'm just going to match up to what's typed there. So my timestamp is that. Let's do that, and that should do it. And you're right. These are 00. Save. Let's just take that one. It doesn't really matter. It's just a bit of a nuance. Save that one. Okay, so you'll see in my table of contents, I'll have that link, and in the render video, that will be a web link that they can press to go off to that website. So it's a good way if you want to direct them to a site. to have that listed within the table of contents, and just say, have a look at the table of contents and you'll find the link to the website that we're talking about. It's quite useful. That is not embedded, it's just a link, so all websites should work with that option. Okay, right, that is the editing interface done. Does anyone have any questions about any of that we've covered? I realise this is a lot, but I have recorded this session and I'll forward it on to you once we finish, so you can go back and recap anything that we have covered. Okay, I'll take that as a no questions. So that is the editing interface for the majority of things that you'd want to do. Going back to our running order, so we've recorded, we've done some basic editing, we've added a table of content, and we've created a knowledge check. So those sections that will get you up and running in terms of recording a lecture for students and actually having some really good practice in it in terms of breaking it up and letting students check their knowledge, and you getting a good barometer for whether they've understood it or not. We've talked about sharing best practice across modules. We'll now talk about how you record from the webinar software or meeting recording software that you're most likely to use. At the university, we have 3 options, so that's good. They have different features and they do different things well. If you are delivering to students in a seminar a scenario, I would probably recommend Zoom as your best option because it handles breakout rooms more easily than any of the other pieces of software. WebEx will do it, but it can be quite fiddly. Zoom is the most straightforward to do that. So a lot of the time when you're delivering a seminar, you're either having a big discussion with a group of students, or you've got too many students to do that effectively and you want to break them out into smaller rooms. Zoom will let you do that with the breakout room feature. You can allocate rooms on the fly based on who turns up, and you can do that automatically, or you can cherry pick your groups based on who students want to work with. So handily, most of the time you're also going to want to record these seminars as well, or sometimes you are, so that students that couldn't attend can get the summary and the explanation of what was discussed in those sessions. Within Zoom, if you hit record, by default it goes to the Zoom cloud, so it's stored online and it's added there. But as an added benefit, when you press record, it goes to the Zoom cloud and then it goes to Panopto for you. It's hidden by default, but those recordings are there waiting for you when you go into Panopto. They take a few minutes to process, but they end up in Panopto. I'll show you where they end up. If I press the home button within Panopto, they appear within your My folder. So if I press My folder, you will see meeting recordings, and in there you'll see some recordings that I've done recently. So these Zoom meetings just appeared automatically because I pressed record, and these ones are from Google Meet. So with Google Meet is very good for just having meetings with colleagues or kind of small groups. It doesn't have the hierarchy of presenter and viewers, so you can't mute people. You don't have control over the room quite so much. But if you're meeting with colleagues or students are wanting to meet together, Google Meet is a good way of doing that. In terms of recordings, though, when you press record, everyone has to accept the recording to be part of it. And we will cover something in terms of kind of permissions for recording. But everyone's pressed OK. Yes, I'm happy for this recording to go ahead. And then the person who set up the meeting will get that recording in their Gmail inbox. So they'll get a video which they can view. But in order to get into Panopto, you have to download that video and then upload it to Panopto. And you do that via the upload media option. or associated with your Moodle course, you had that upload button. If you remember, in that box we had select, upload, or record. So you'd use that middle option if you want to upload directly to Moodle. So upload media, then select your Google Meet recording is how you get your recording in there. It's the same, it's a similar manual process for WebEx. If you press record within WebEx, it goes to the WebEx website, and I will very quickly show you what that looks like. So uop.webex.com, and on the left-hand side, here are the recordings for the sessions that I'm a host for. So I press that record button within this WebEx session, and later on, there'll be a recording that appears here. And you can download that recording and then upload it to Panopto. That's what I'll do later to give you all access to it. I'll download that recording, I'll come back to Panopto, and I'll upload the media to it and share that with you. So as you can see, the simplest option in all of those is Zoom. So in most situations, when you're working with students, Zoom is the winner. Better breakout room location. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So that was a video playing on my other screen. It wasn't me actually talking. It was just reminding me. Sean loves this one while you're in that view. Although you may have, and like Mike showed you, the Panopto recorder, if you have the Panopto capture, I don't know whether you're going to cover that, Mike, or not.
I wasn't, but we can do if you'd like to.
It's one of those bits where I know this is overwhelming for a lot of people. Panopto capture doesn't require any download, and I know this works for a few Mac people who have older versions of the OS that don't allow the download of the Panopto installer. It's a web-based version, and it's very, very big, simple buttons. So the problem Mike has, as he mentioned before, is the camera can't work because it's being used by WebEx. But you've got the microphone. You click on the microphone to choose your audio input. You use the camera for your camera input, and then the screen with the plus to choose what screen you want to record. And then you just hit the big record button, press it to stop, and it's a very simple way of doing Panopto recording without the actual installer. It is useful to have the installer, don't get me wrong, but if you're just really kind of overwhelmed and want to start recording, that is the simplest way around it.
Okay, that's worth knowing. Thank you. So to cover a few of those. So most of the time you're recording a new session or uploading something you've recorded on your phone or tablet. As Tom says, Panopto Capture, very, very straightforward way to record something quickly and easily. You can create playlists within Panopto, so you have a series of videos if you want. You create new folders. We messed about with webcasts the other day, and I would steer you away from it. There are better ways to doing webcasts. So a webcast is where you want to record a session, but then deliver it to a lot of people all at once. And you probably want to use something like Google Meet for that, because you can have up to 100,000 people viewing at the same time. So if you're delivering a conference along those lines, you probably want to use something like Google Meet. But you can do webcasts within Panopto if you want to. But as I say, without meaning to overload you too much, recording a new session and uploading media is normally what you'll do within Panopto. Okay, so there we go. We're almost there. If you have any questions, as I say, please drop them into the chat. We've just got one more section to cover, and that's copyright and consent considerations, the fun bit. So if I pop this up on my screen, so this is from the new content capture policy, finished in July 2020. So I've just highlighted a few sections, and then I'll have a summary of what we mean by this at the very end. I gave a kind of practical demonstration of this at the start of the session, in terms of how I spoke to you and kind of asked you at the start of the session, but I'll recap that as well. So in terms of recording captured by university staff, where possible, capture only the audio video of the session presenters and or teaching resources not other session attendees, e.g. the participating students. There are exceptions to that though, obviously. Session attendees should be told before recording starts that the session is to be recorded. Module coordinators will notify students which of the lectures will be recorded. In terms of lectures, at the moment, most lectures will be recorded, but this is really kind of in relevance to seminar activities. What I would say is for seminar activities, students won't always get the most out of listening to other students discuss things. What they probably need, if they can't attend the seminar activity and take part, what they probably need is a summary of the activity at the very start, introduced by yourself, and then a conclusion which wraps up the main points that students kind of learned from that activity. So a summation of the main points that were learned. The whole point of a seminar activity or a tutorial or discussion or a teamwork task is collaboration. Students aren't getting the best out of it if they're just watching recording. You want them to turn up and interact with other students and work together to solve problems. That is the core to that activity. So recording is a secondary process, just making it available to students that couldn't attend. Obviously, encouraging them to come to the live session is encouraged, but because of this policy and because students may not want to be recorded, you can ask them if they want to, and you can record them, but you have to get their consent before you do that. Second section: participants and university rights. Students should be aware before the recording starts, and you should gather consent. It's as simple as that. Students are required to be recorded if the recording is a mandatory part of their assessment. If they're delivering presentations, and you are very likely going to want to record those presentations so that you can give them feedback, and students can recap their practice and see where they've gone wrong and see where they can improve. So in a lot of cases, assessment trumps rights to that. If it's a mandatory part of the assessment, then students can be recorded. So there are exceptions to these rules. So in summary of that, student consent should be requested when recording. Try not to record students, just the teaching. Let students know in advance if the session is being recorded. Remind students to mute themselves and turn off their cameras if they don't want to be recorded. The chat function can be used to ask questions. Most of these options, particularly WebEx, actually WebEx is very good in this regard, because after you've recorded, you can select which options appear in the recording. You can take out the chat window. If there's someone who doesn't want to be part of the recording and doesn't even want their name to appear within the chat window, you can, or participant list, you can uncheck those options. So you just end up with the slides or yourself talking and none of the participants. That's probably a rare case. Actually, in most instances, the students will know who's on a course in most instances. If you ask them to switch off their microphone and turn off their video if they don't want to be included in the recording, that will help cover most scenarios. But it is important that you say that at the start of the video, just to give students that awareness, and then you've asked their permission, and you've got a recording of you asking for that permission at the start. So just covering yourself really. So, and as I say, assessment activities, there is you can't really opt out in certain situations if it's a mandatory part of the assessment. If you go and read the capture policy, it's actually quite brief. It doesn't take too long to read if you want to. Those are the main points you'll probably be interested in. But you can see the link there at the bottom. There is a little bit in there about copyright in terms of who owns what. If you're presenting something that you own the copyright to, external to the university, then it says that you give the right to for us to share that with students via the VLE, because that's an acceptable, that's quite a common sense thing that would happen. If an external third party presenter comes in and they're presenting something they own the copyright to, again, we have the right to share that with our students because it's an education process. That's what we're trying to do. But obviously they retain the copyright for it. So that's a summation of the content capture policy in terms of what's probably useful to you. If you have any other questions around that, please do jump in and ask. I would just say, just get in the habit of, if you're recording a session which students are part of, just start with that introduction. If you don't want to be part of it, please turn off your microphone and camera, because we will be recording the session. If you don't want your name to appear in the video, please let us know before we process the video.
Can I just ask a question, sort of looking at it from the other point of view? If we have videos that we're not allowed to distribute.
Yes.
Is part of this policy any obligation from the students to not distribute any parts of lectures or whatever?
There is a section in there actually that says about students recording academics, and I think it's the same way around. They have to ask if they want to do that, and it's a fair point. But if you cover something that they're not allowed to circulate, yes, I'm sure that is covered. I can't remember the exact line, and I don't want to go searching for it. But have a quick read. There is definitely something in there in terms of the student obligations within that process as well. I recommend having a quick read. It's very straightforward. It's not too onerous, the policy.
Yeah. It's just that I have videos that actually belong to a colleague.
Okay.
I usually show them in a live lecture.
Yep.
If I'm going to record it and the students actually download each lecture,
yep,
which is different than viewing the lecture, then I can't use those videos.
Yeah, there is something in there about third parties and rights, but that's when a specific third party, so they own the copyright and they present it, we are allowed to put it on the VLE for students to view. That's part. But actually, it's you on behalf of the third party, which is the grey area there. It's a good question. It's a really good question. We are allowed to do certain. Tom's very good at copyright. We are allowed to do, sorry, mate. We are allowed to do a certain amount in terms of within an educational context, aren't we? I'd probably kind of default to the library to get a real good clarification on this.
David Sharon is the fellow you wish to speak to.
It's very good.
From your bit there, how are the videos you're showing hosted to start with? Is it like a videotape you put in a machine and that is what plays it live, or have you got a video file that you're showing them?
Usually I have the video. Sometimes I can embed it in my PowerPoint. Sometimes, it's just a external video clip.
Yes, my question there is, where is that hosted to embed it and play it in the PowerPoint?
In whatever machine I need to play it in. I don't understand.
So it's a physical file on a.
So you have a USB stick with like a movie file on that is the video that your colleague has given you.
Yes.
It's not like it's hosted on YouTube or something.
No, it's not on YouTube. It's private.
Yes. So it's on your stick.
Yep.
And so when you then do the PowerPoint, it's referencing the video file on that stick and is only there for that time. It's not then shared after the fact.
That's the case in the past, yes.
Yeah. So there's kind of two parts to this answer. The first is the colleague who's given you the file to share. Are they at the university? Or they're a different institution. You'd need to probably get written permission first to put it into something like our version of Panopto, with the understanding that it is their video, but obviously and this need to speak to the kind of the content capture policy people about how that would sit. My gut feeling is unfortunately you can't show it, because as soon as it goes into that as a video you've produced, you're then getting the bit that Mike was talking about, where the university has rights to show it to their students. Now, students can't download from Panopto, So it's only streamable. It's not like they get the physical thing to then distribute that way, and then the sharing rights to that come into place. That even if they share the link to the Panopto video, the other students who are not in your unit will not see it.
But
So-
are you saying it's secure? So a lecture that we put on Panopto can't be recorded by a student?
I didn't say that. I said they couldn't download it.
They could record the screen.
They could record the screen, and so you could get Inception level Panopto going.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify with this policy, and I think Thomas and I have already discussed all the potential possibilities, and in fact, you can't put a clip that's private onto this platform with a guarantee that the students respect its private nature.
Yeah,
I think it's true of in a face-to-face lecture as well. Though there's nothing to stop a student with their phone recording something that you show within a lecture without you knowing. I think it all goes back to just asking permission from the copyright holder, and if you get that, then you're quite well covered.
Oh yeah, well, but that's the issue. Yeah. Anyway, thanks. I don't want to take up too much more time.
No worries. That's no problem at all.
Can I take control of the screen a second, Mike? Just because of some of the questions Kim's put in the chat, I kind of wanted to show output to hopefully make it kind of clear. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is a video I've just edited together and has a few bits in it. So Kim was asking about where the subtitles go. So when I click the play with it in here, I'm going to mute myself, and then I turn on the closed captions. And again, I think like Mike had. Also, I put in here, this is what a student will see for a quiz. So I put a quiz in there, so they then do that. So do I want to retake, review my quiz? No, I want to continue to the video. And so that's where, so what you can see there is, that's where the text goes for the captions. And that is my little video over the, if I turn off the captions, that's the little video of me when it's embedded. However, what Mike was kind of demonstrating, if they click watch in Panopto, and this is, I think, where you were possibly kind of had that disconnect, Kim, is when they then expand it to a bigger view, the video view no longer becomes a little square down the bottom. My name's Tom Langston. And this, hopefully, that. You're then there, and then the video itself is there. So if I again put the captions on through the CC button, it then actually minimizes the screen a bit more and just does it as a full, I like how it's spelled, taught sessions. It does it as a separate bit underneath as a full black bar rather than playing it. So depending on how you're watching the video will depend on where those elements sit. So like
really helpful, Thomas. Thank you.
And I did at the end from someone else's question. Go away, WebEx. If I get to the end of this video, I have in here as well, I think actually about a minute and a half. Okay. So like Mike was talking about, I've put a Padlet, 20p's. I have put a Padlet in here somewhere. I should have remembered where that was. Maybe I didn't apply that one. But at the end, I also put a YouTube video. Now, what I'm going to do is just check. $116, that was. So.
Are the students advised to view it in Panopto?
Well, this comes to like Mike's sort of saying, if you do it in the topic space as a link, they will then by default view it in Panopto. If you choose to embed it, they will then watch it here, but have the option to. There's no advice directly of how they're doing it. That's kind of how you're building the materials, if that makes sense.
But so I haven't done mine yet because it's teaching block 2, but we were given the template. And if we build it in Panopto, does that just supersede the template?
We've seen that the template. Sorry to jump in,
No.
Tom. We've seen people use the template in different ways. You can. The template doesn't say you have to do the recordings in any way. It just recommends that you have recordings in certain sections. So whether you have the links to the Panopto videos in the weekly introduction, or I've seen really good applications of people embedding those within the guidance itself. It's entirely up to you. I think students are quite adept at if it's embedded video and it has a small window like that. The interface is very similar to YouTube in that if you're watching something that's quite detailed, you'll automatically want to press that expand button to get the full view. I think students are quite FA with that process. But if you're concerned with it, just put the link in. But both are absolutely fine. But if you're concerned, put the link in and they go directly to the wider interface.
And to Mike's point on Panopto and the template and how it fits together, this is a Moodle book. So what I've done here is I've got my introductory video. I then have some text that I want the students to read. I then have a knowledge check activity outside of the video that I get them to do, which I think is a Padlet in this case. Oh no, there you go. It's a what's it called? A H5P activity. I then have, this might be the Padlet. No, it's another video. But essentially what I've done is constructed the Panopto video throughout the material. So it's not this superseding the template. It's kind of just a way of using Panopto inside of the template and how you're structuring the learning for the student. I don't know whether Mike would agree or not with that.
And
You're muted, Mike.
Yes, choose the option that best fits. I want to demo it all within Panopto because I'm not sure everyone knows that you can do all of those elements now within a Panopto video. But actually, if you want more engaging content, that you probably want to use a H5P as part of your content as well. So yeah, deliver it via a Moodle book to give you that structure. But if you want to deliver a simple lecture, signpost it well, and do a knowledge check, you can do that all in one Panopto video. Great stuff. Any more questions just to finish off? Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much for coming along. Please please tell your colleagues we will be running more sessions. I'll circulate this recording to you once the process is via Panopto, so you can have a play. If you've got any specific questions, please do come back. Please have a play. That's how I've personally learned to use it. Is just trying things and then having to work out how to do them. But yes, there we go. Thank you very much for coming along. And I'm going to press stop.